and welcome to Zasaa. Oh my gosh, you will not believe who I have here with me because I arrived laughing. Well, I've got Lola with me.
Hello.
And Wonu, who I'm going to start banning from this show. Because first of all, she appears too much, and secondly, she's always causing trouble. But anyway, today, thank you for coming, even though you drive me crazy.
Don't worry about it. I'll be here. I'll be here for you guys. I'll show up for you guys. Don't worry about her. She's just the owner of the show.
It's that minor detail.
Minor detail. So today we're going to talk about culture. Now, I've spoken about culture quite a bit the last few weeks on this show, but we're looking at it from a different perspective. And it's really about passing down our culture to our children. Okay. Now, Wonu, you are particularly keen to talk about this. Why?
I don't remember what brought this on, but I was thinking, I was on Instagram and I was listening to some young girls they were talking about teaching themselves Yoruba. So I'm Nigerian Yoruba and I have 3 children that do not speak the language.
Do you speak
the language? Do you speak it? Can you
fluently?
Indeed.
I do speak it fluently. My husband understands fluently, but he doesn't speak fluently. So we don't speak Yoruba at home. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. That's why my children don't speak Yoruba. My husband is mortified every time. He's like, just speak Yoruba. I'm just like, listen. And I don't know why, but I was listening to some of these young girls and they were saying, oh, they taught themselves Yoruba because they want to, know about their culture and whatever. And I was thinking, so are my kids going to have to teach themselves? Why did I not teach them? It's such a simple thing. And I was looking at other cultures, Asians, those guys have it on lockdown. Their children speak, from what I know, I could be wrong, speak the language, they might as well be back home. So, and then he got me thinking, why am I not passing that down to my kids? I pass other things down like that, simpler, like, so if my kids saw a Nigerian person on the road, they would do like, in Yoruba, for Yoruba people, the girls curtsy, the boys kind of do like a head thing, bow thing. So they do that.
It's funny, I'm not big on that.
I'm very big on that.
But you know what? I'm going to throw a spanner in the works, and I may be wrong here. Now, I don't speak Yoruba. I don't really know enough.
Nobody even knows that she doesn't speak Yoruba. Because we all speak Yoruba freely with her. And I should understand that we just carry on.
I have a basic understanding. But, I think, and I may be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but certainly when I was growing up, and I grew up in Nigeria, it was not encouraged to speak the language.
That's true.
So we didn't speak it, even if you spoke it in school, it was like, you can't speak vernacular. Why you speak, you couldn't speak it in school unless if you were studying it as a language, and a lot of schools didn't have it as a language to be studied. And then because of I don't know if it's our love for all things non-Nigerian or trying to be a bit, so we didn't encourage it. So the people, I know my sister-in-law learned Yoruba here. It's like when they came here, they felt the need to actually identify. Whereas back home, there wasn't so much that need to. So
but that wasn't my experience there.
Wait, now I'm telling you my experience. Did I ask you your experience? We are coming to you. These people.
This is how we
I
do.
apologize.
Don't just come and be like it's your show.
Your family was
in the middle.
Your family was a bit forward thinking. I'm just talking generally. I'm generalizing, and I know I'm generalizing. So you know what I mean. So I think a lot of people didn't think of Yoruba as a positive thing necessarily.
Right.
Of speaking the language.
Language.
Right.
You do understand?
My parents didn't.
Really?
Enough. Yeah, we didn't think of it as a forward-thinking thing. We used to be told off.
Yeah,
really?
exactly.
Yes, we were not allowed to speak Yoruba.
You come from a weird family.
I could read and write Yoruba by the time I was 4 years old.
No way.
Yeah.
I actually went to school and they taught me how to read and write.
But
Yoruba.
I think, okay, so let's even check. Are you not in the minority, or do you know many people like that?
Okay.
No.
Okay, now that you say that.
I don't think that's
we only spoke Yoruba I remember my mom saying that my grandmother, that's my father's mother, said, why aren't they speaking English? Yes. She was like, they will learn English when they go to school. We spoke Yoruba so from 0 to, obviously, it's not like we didn't understand English, but we spoke Yoruba to each other. But then from the age of 11 to about 18, I didn't speak a word of Yoruba.
But you already knew it was.
But it was already. I had learned how to read and then we lived in Abeokuta till I was about 6. The church we went to was in Yoruba. Oh, wow. I used to read the hymns in Yoruba.
This is complete immersion.
So it wasn't going anywhere. Yeah. But then 11, I went to boarding school. Right. I mixed with a lot of non-Yoruba people, and I just stopped speaking. And even when I went back home, we just like with my siblings, we just started speaking in English to each other, and now we still speak English to each other. But from that 0 to my mom made sure we spoke, and I remember going. I was very little, so it was been in nursery school because it was before I was 4. They were teaching us how to write.
But okay, so did you speak Yoruba to your kids?
No,
Why?
because
Was
by
it
then
deliberate or
I had stopped speaking Yoruba.
But you still know how to speak it.
I can
When you
speak
say-
it very well. I can
okay,
read.
So when you
I-
say you stopped, it was just
No, I
not
didn't.
your normal-
I stopped
You
speaking
didn't
it to
converse,
people. Yeah,
in
because
Yoruba.
my friendship circle was not full of Yoruba people. So it was just
well
not
done you, because
relevant.
Yoruba people like to stick together.
I'm not even insulting us.
I don't know if I should. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so yeah.
Because for me, right, I didn't speak the language, but I speak other languages, and so
Okay.
with my kids,
So-
I. But I agree with you. But but in my defense, because of where I grew up, we didn't do the Yoruba. I had no Yoruba influence in my life at the time. And obviously, I chose to do languages, so I did languages. So I think
Okay.
I would be good at But the problem with Yoruba is every time I try to speak it, you Yoruba people will laugh at me because my pronunciation, I know Yoruba is so tonal.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Like
yeah.
if you miss it, you can say
Use your
something
whole body to
completely
speak the
Yeah.
language.
and then you can say the wrong thing with the same word
Yes,
has like 20
yes.
different meanings
Yeah,
or
yeah.
pronunciations or whatever. So I then in the end I just thought, you know what, these Yoruba people, leave them.
Leave
I'm not
them
even
where
to-
they are.
Yeah, but I was so sure that my husband, because I didn't speak French to my kids because I thought my husband was going to speak Yoruba to them. That was our agreement because I really wanted them to learn Yoruba. Well, needless to say, I didn't speak French, he didn't speak Yoruba, and they only speak English. And it pains me to the core that we
I
have
think if you don't
languages in the
speak
house.
it as a couple, that was
In
it
a
for
house,
us.
yes.
We converse in English
Yes, same,
completely.
same.
We don't
But you
speak
see, I
Yoruba
don't
to each
even
other.
think it has to be. I feel like the onus is on us. I don't think it has to be as a couple because when you look at these foreign mothers, they will speak to their child. The father might not speak the language, but
true.
they will speak
That's
in
true.
their language to their children.
I have a friend who is Czech.
Okay,
Her
that's
husband
true.
is English.
That's
Her son speaks fluent.
Yeah.
Fluent. They come from Prague. Fluent. She
Wow.
was intentional. The nannies she got, they were all
They were-
from
wow.
Czech Republic. Yes. Every holiday, as much as she can, they'll go back home. He used to go to summer camps. The first summer camp, he couldn't even speak the language. He said, "You're good. You will understand." And now he's been to like 8.
Yeah, you see, so I think
Yeah,
you
so
have
she
to
was
be
intentional.
very
Intentional,
intentional
yeah.
about
Yeah.
Or is it
passing
that we don't want to be? I mean, why? Like, I'm trying to think why my kids don't speak Yoruba because, like, my sisters, as I said, in my house, we weren't encouraged at all. You got into trouble if you spoke Yoruba. How we learned it, even my parents cannot even tell us. They don't know. But now, when we get to the shop and my dad is trying to sneakily tell me that thing is expensive, and I'm looking at him like, why did you let me speak? So I know it's useful for, even if it's just like
Yeah,
just
it
that kind of
is,
thing.
yeah.
So why wasn't I intentional? Is it really that I'm just so
I
lazy?
have to say I did try, but there was
I
just
think
the
it's
environment.
very
I
hard
bought, what's that? Alawiye.
Oh yeah, I
Years
have
1
that
to
book.
5.
Yeah.
But I just, first of all, I was all over the place. Is it
Yes,
when I'm trying to get to drop you in football, then pick you in swimming, that I'll be doing. It was just an overwhelming time for me.
Yes.
So
So I
that just
agree.
went down the drain.
So it
you
wasn't
know.
because you were thinking this is our culture.
No.
It's
I
not that
it
I
just
still
was-
have the books.
Oh,
I
okay.
ordered them from Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
Although I have to say one of the books, the second page, this is Mr. Musa. He has 3 wives. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So that kind of, so maybe this is not what I want to teach my 6-year-old. So that didn't help. But
Is
I
that not
just
part of the culture we're trying to pass down? I mean, if we're
no, but I
passing down
couldn't.
the
I just
culture-
couldn't explain how this man has 3 wives. So I just thought, you know what? Let's leave it.
But isn't it enough to just that's just speaking the language at home?
No, I think that it would use it, but it's also if you're not used to it. So if you
Yes,
have continued
yes.
speaking,
Speaking-
yeah, you know what I mean? Because
I would have been-
I mean, I have some people that don't speak English to me. Like they literally don't speak English to me, and I have to remind them every so often. But I don't understand this
Okay,
language
fair
either.
enough.
Because their default is to speak in Yoruba.
yeah.
So as long as you fit that,
Figure out,
you have a Yoruba name or whatever. I don't know how they determine whether you speak. They
I
just
know your
speak
name
to
is
you.
so Yoruba, as in there's
Yeah.
no getting away from the Yoruba-ness of who you are.
They just speak to you in the, So I think if you're used to speaking
Yeah.
Right.
the language, then you probably would
You
just
just
to do
flow,
it
yeah,
anyway.
that's true.
And one of my friends, she was so deliberate. She lived in America, and from birth, she only ever spoke to her children in
That's what
Yoruba.
they do.
That's
what
only
we need
ever.
to do.
Yeah.
And that's all she did.
Honestly,
Because her husband was wasn't Yoruba.
Okay.
So
Okay,
she
so
spoke
she
to
was
her children
intentional.
in Yoruba so that they could, and then I think when they hit like 10, she stopped. But
Because
it
But they are, that was already.
they don't
yeah.
necessarily
But then
speak
they knew.
Yoruba, but they understand,
But they understand
fully.
everything.
Yeah,
you know
That's
what I mean?
really good.
So, you know, and it would be funny because she'll be, you know, her kids are there. So she's talking to me. She'll say, oh, so Tinuke, some of that. But, and straight into Yoruba, as in she knew that these ones don't understand
Exactly,
English.
yeah.
You know, that was almost how she did it. The only thing they understand is Yoruba.
Wow.
So even when she was speaking English to other people in that, she would
only speak
never
Yoruba.
speak to them in English. But that took a
That's
lot
true.
of
That takes a lot of
willpower,
deliberate,
discipline, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think sometimes, like you said, depending on your life, that
Depending
is
on
not
what's
easy.
going on. It's not
Yeah,
easy at all. I
It's
had the
really easy.
intention. I just didn't have the capacity.
I don't think I had the intention. If I'm honest, I don't think, if I was thinking like I'm thinking now, like I really want my children to understand a little bit more of my culture by speaking the language, I may it's a very slim 2%, may have been more deliberate about it. I feel like I would have, but because now there's a little bit of pain that they don't speak the language. Just I
And
mean,
my son wants to. He's
My
so,
daughter-
He's so
yes,
desperate. He
honestly.
wants to know how to.
But you know, there are a few of
speak
these online. I can.
just
there are a few
annoys
of
me
these-
that we have to pay for.
That we
it.
have to.
Well,
yeah.
well, that's
yeah.
because
that's,
you didn't do
that's
the work
That's
yourself.
it, really. That's
It
it,
just annoys me
really.
that I have to
They're
pay
like,
for
oh
something
gosh,
that speaks so
that,
freely.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then so often I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start.
Yeah, yeah.
It probably lasts like half a day. and I'm
The
back.
other day we were pulling out of the house, me, my husband, and my son, and he said, "Okay, from here to church, just speak only Yoruba to me." I'm like, okay, but before we got to the traffic, I'm like, okay, sorry, please, can we go back? Because he was lost.
No, but can't
He
you
was
do that?
so
Can't you
lost.
do that broken Yoruba where you put English inside?
But it was the way he said, "Don't, not a word of English, just speak Yoruba to me."
Bless him, though he really wants
As
to.
we would even get to the lights down the road. I was like,
That means
please,
you guys really talk on your journey to church.
we have to now.
Otherwise, where are you gonna talk? Because when you're at home, you're on the laptop or something.
Because the lights down the road are just down the road. So how much did they say that time that he was already begging? But okay, so we've spoken specifically about
Language.
Why? What else of your culture do you want to? Because you see, why is it language? Because by giving them you can give them the language, but does it? Because I always feel like, even though I don't speak the language and I really don't know the Yoruba culture in any depth,
Detail.
but what I mean is that I feel like, even so, I always say this thing: we're raising British children. We pretend they're Nigerian, but they're British. But even
But they're not just British.
they're not just
though.
British;
Okay.
they're of Nigerian descent. What I mean is that you know the way we try and say, "Oh, my child is Nigerian." They're not. They don't think. They
Yeah.
don't understand it. And I feel like sometimes just being in the environment, there's something about the culture. Like I remember when I finished university, there was a job that I went for at HSBC, and all they wanted, I studied languages, and I studied. There's a language I studied. I don't want to admit it publicly. No. But anyway, all they wanted, they didn't even want me to speak the language. They wanted me to understand the culture. Like to understand what certain, you know what I mean? Like, so speaking the language wasn't the issue. That was a plus if you got that. But it was more about, do you understand the culture? So when they say this, what do they really mean? When they do this,
Okay,
when
gotcha.
you know what I mean? And so, and I feel like, and the reason I brought that up is because I feel like sometimes you don't get that culture without living that understanding of
Without
the culture,
being
without
in
being
that
in, there's so
immersion.
many nuances,
Yeah.
so many, you know, like you can say that, oh, she did her eyes like this, or she, but when you're in the culture,
Yeah.
it makes so
Kinda
much,
get it.
Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah,
understand everything.
But then that means your culture will really be lost in 10 years. As in literally, because are you saying that if they're not immersed in that culture, then they can't?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying obviously there's a level of the culture they get
I
from
mean,
us because we
limits,
already
yeah.
have it.
And
Yes,
because
yes.
of the community that they
That we
engage
expose
in.
them to, yeah.
You know, I think it was one of my cousins. She lives in the States, and they don't go to an African church. Their friends are not Nigerian. So their kids are not.
There's no way.
Yeah. So she was trying to she wanted to kind of send him to Nigeria for a bit, and just to get that
something,
Nigerian.
yeah.
So there's a difference between, for example, kids that are immersed in a Nigerian community here,
Yes,
and some that are absolutely no connection.
No connection. I try to be the culture in my house. I am the culture. What does
That should be a tagline.
Like,
I am the culture.
I'm all about. I bring Nigerian dishes to the house all the time. I bring Nigerian prints, outfits to the house. I say this is how we do it in Nigeria. I really try to bring all of that. Like, in fact, sometimes when they eat Nigerian food, they use their hand.
Okay.
Like, I use a fork, but I use a fork. But I could defer to but I don't. So I try to like just bring as much of it as possible because I actually am genuinely worried that my kids will have nothing to do with Yoruba. Like
It's a genuine concern.
like I really
concern.
think that my children's children, they will just be like, wait, what is that? and that would be so sad for me.
It's funny. I was chatting with a friend today. Actually, we're just talking about how, obviously my dad is buried in his house in his hometown. I mean,
That's a bit much.
none of us are going there
Yeah, there is that.
in this generation.
Yeah, forget the
Like,
next.
you
Yeah.
know, so what's gonna happen? We can't sell the house because he's buried there right beside his mother. I know, that's not gonna.
What's gonna lift them?
So we're just. I mean, the point was, my children are not going. They're never reaching Lagos because of going to the hometown. So what happens? What happens with
But do you
that?
think
It's the
that
same thing, isn't
Yeah,
it?
But
It's
do
the
you
same
think
thing.
that there isn't? Because I was talking to someone the other day, and I can't even remember who it was, but going on about how we hit a certain stage here, and it seems like a lot of us are going back. So do you
Yes.
not
As in going back to.
Nigeria.
Oh, really? Okay.
That was before. No.
Not anymore. Okay, because effectively what what the guy was saying to me was that he doesn't think it's very unusual for people to retire. We're talking about a gentleman who has been here for years, and so when I said he had died and I was going to his funeral, he kind of assumed he was going to be in Nigeria.
back
So I
home.
said no, he's here. So he was like, oh, that's
He didn't
odd.
go
So
back?
I
Okay.
said no, but he's been here.
Still.
He said, oh, that's very unusual for a Nigerian man. It was just a conversation that we had. He said most of them, by the time they hit like 50, mid 50,
they wanna go back.
or they will at least be
Yeah.
But
in
they
and
also
out,
there's
you know.
another angle to that because they usually hit a professional peak.
Yes, which might be why.
And so
yes.
there's nothing, and I see that in men a lot because women can kind of find stuff to do. So apart from people that establish businesses here, that's the next best. But I think this generation of 40, 50-year-olds have kind of built a life here. You have friends here. You are really entrenched in British society.
Yeah.
You really are.
Even your values and the way you
Yeah.
think of retirement is quite
British.
British. So I think it's unlikely that you now start thinking, we're going to go back, or you should carry, one
My
body
my
over.
daughter she's gonna be 16 soon. I think maybe.
What?
I know. Can you imagine? I think maybe when she's like 25, she might think
Really?
yes.
Really?
Because she's really interested
She
in
likes-
culture.
she likes
Yeah,
it,
she
okay.
likes it.
There's a program coming up on Channel 5
Called?
from Tuesday. Michael Palin in
Yes,
in
yeah.
Nigeria.
I'm just glad he made it back. I don't mean. I kept wondering what he went there.
Anyway, let her watch it. Was the point I was going to make.
I was like, you go so I can see, because I'm not going to go back.
I
And
know.
I'm Nigerian.
Can you see how this is?
But then
No,
even
you
as-
can't find me
do you know,
going.
even as a Nigerian, but do you think so? In Nigeria, for those who don't know, so there are three main tribes. They're not the only tribes, though. I've said it. Main. The Igbo people have this thing on lockdown. Igbo people go back to the village.
Yeah.
Come
Yep.
what may,
Yes.
those guys are going
Yes.
to the village.
Yes.
I didn't get it as a kid. I'm just like, what's wrong with you people? Now you people have village. But now their kids and their kids' know about villages.
Yeah.
And village life for them is not like, like if my dad came and said we're going to the village, I'll be like, no, I'm not. You might be going to the village. I'm going to be in Lagos. I'll be here when you come back.
So,
But
so,
even
it,
what,
so
they-
maybe
they-
it's about
everyone's going.
how priority and how what you put. Because I'm thinking of certain Igbo kids. They don't speak the language, but they go to the village.
but they- yeah.
Village is a big deal.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So I
Yeah.
think maybe it's the priority that is put on certain things that we don't necessarily put on.
I heard
But
Biafra has something to do with it, but,
But I'm very big on my culture,
same.
my Yoruba culture, but my sub Yoruba culture as an Ijebu person, I'm very
You even have that one.
yes. I'm very proud of it. And I try to, and some of the things, I mean, I don't know if it's culturally just Yoruba, but I just try to let the kids see how, because I've seen my parents, how they kind of treated their parents, and I'm like, I just assumed that's what everybody did. I realized that not everybody kind of does that. So I'm intentionally teaching my
Right,
children how to
right.
respect, how to honor your parents, how to,
that's a good
because that's what I
one.
saw my parents do
Okay,
with their
yeah,
own
same.
respective parents.
Yes.
And
Good
I think there's a thing about it's family is called ebi in Yoruba. It's a very strong, you don't break the ebi, you don't destroy it. So I'm very keen on promoting that with my children. I mean, I know it might be a universal thing, but for me, I learned it from my people that way, and
That's a good
that
one,
goes
actually.
on. And the
But if I
respect
do
thing.
that, I might let go of the language.
But you see, I think there's also the, and I think you were on one of the conversations where we had about the Christian culture and the traditional culture, and always what I was saying that I feel like if they come in they're against each other, then the Christian culture should prevail, yes. But I think there's also an element of what bits of the culture do we actually want to take? Because culture is not all bad. And I think sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of not great stuff, but there's a lot of fantastic stuff.
Absolutely.
And when you just throw out the culture in general, you lose. I mean, you just picked language, but I think, like you said, honoring your there are different bits that you can pick. I mean, there's one bit that the bits that we don't need to pick at all. But but you know what I mean. But there are many good bits that one could possibly pick. But the culture is so rich and so. I mean, there's so many things that
Exactly.
There's so much of it too that we really need to pass on. And honestly, I really.
But the clothes thing as well, that's something you're passing down.
That is something I'm passing. And I intentionally make it for my kids as well, so that my daughter loves it. Like she wears like.
But you see,
Ankara
so you know that I have Ankara stuff. I think we've exchanged Ankara stuff. Now my daughter initially loved it, and then I don't know if somebody said something. Now doesn't want anything to do with it. So
the fabric or the style?
The fabric.
Oh really?
Yeah. And so I'm like, how do I now counter? I don't know. Because whereas before I would always out of uniform we would do some Ankara thing. Now,
it may just be a season because she's young, so it may just be that. Okay, let me.
I was a bit upset because that was where I was passing culture. I was thinking,
I got one. 20% is not bad.
Because I don't think I ever wore Ankara till I was in my like you couldn't find. I mean, obviously Ankara is now. When we were younger, it was the help that were back then.
Yeah, it's true.
Sorry,
it's true. We did. It's true.
Yeah.
But I saw an apprentice recently.
Yes, Felicia.
Felicia was. Yeah, on apprentice. I was thinking, I mean, it was a bit tight, but she did a really good job. So so I tried to pass on all those other things.
Yeah.
Food for sure,
Food,
and I like them to say, you know, in Yoruba people, we have this GB thing.
Yes.
Benga. So my son is 10. He always goes.
He
always goes Benga.
Yes.
I'm like, that's it.
That's it.
Because I actually don't know how you learn that.
Or
How do we learn that?
Yeah.
I don't know how you learn that.
Say that again.
Tokwe.
Well, you see, I don't know. They just come natural. I guess because I grew
because
up there,
you grew up
I don't even know.
Yes.
So, but we didn't learn it. We just. So I feel like if they say it's enough times,
they'll get it.
I guess if it's
I
in your
I agree.
So those kind of things, I'm really trying to make sure they don't call.
So I don't think it's dying. I think we're just worrying. What I ask is why do they need to know the language? They don't. Are they planning to move back to Nigeria?
I don't feel like you need to plan to go back to Nigeria to know the language. It's just part of who you.
I feel
like it's one of those things that's part of who you are, and you should just know.
Somebody sent a video in one of the groups I was on, and you know there's a huge Yoruba community in Brazil. And, and he basically said, maybe we'll go and learn Yoruba from the Brazilians.
Can you imagine?
Because you know, like they are like
you laugh at that. That may happen.
I know, right? Yeah, we're laughing at but when we get there.
So I don't think that the Yoruba culture will die, but maybe it will die with the Nigerians.
I know. That's true.
Which is it?
Because there's a huge thriving Yoruba culture outside of.
But is that the Yoruba culture outside Nigeria? Because in Nigeria,
they're not speaking Yoruba to their children.
Maybe in Lagos though.
Okay, in Lagos they're not.
So, but the Yoruba, you have Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Kwara, Ondo.
In Lagos, they're not speaking Yoruba. Other places.
But I grew up with people in Lagos who I have no idea why you don't know how to speak Yoruba.
I know, even me, it baffles me, but if I'm going with my parents in Lagos,
they wouldn't have let you. Okay, fair enough.
I'm convinced we were listening to the house or something because I really don't know how we learned it, and my siblings and I all agree. Like, how do we know how to understand? Maybe because you hear people around you, but to speak it, I have no idea. You were in trouble if you tried to speak Yoruba in the house. You got into the kind of trouble that's the Brits don't like. That's kind of trouble you got into. It wasn't.
But going back to your point about how it wasn't, my friend, when I said, we always did Yoruba, I said, okay, what did you get Yoruba in your SSC, GCSE? I said P7 because it wasn't cool to excel in Yoruba. So you just kind of
studied it. I didn't even have the.
It was compulsory. You had to have a language. You just like tick 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 tick. Do me a favor. Our French teacher was from Togo.
French speaking.
I know, but Togolese French is not the same.
It's different. Yes.
The curriculum was not quite.
Curriculum. I don't know.
But yeah.
I feel like we should bring it back.
Look, I feel like there's so much positive in the culture, and I think that we have to find the balance of what to bring back. And
You don't
I
think language
agree.
is a good one?
no,
to
language is
bring?
a good one, but I don't speak the language, and I don't. I mean, so I would love my kids to. Like, the moment my daughter said I started investigating. That's why I know about
Okay,
this online. I have like 5 of them that I know
Waiting,
that,
yeah.
Wow.
type of thing. But she didn't like the idea of sitting on a computer. She wanted
Right.
to,
Oh, to
and I was like,
somebody.
okay, so that's why we haven't pursued it. But she then started doing it on one app.
Oh,
Because she was just
okay.
like, she wants to learn. So I was like, okay, great. So definitely it's something she wants to learn. Her father sort of half speaks to her from time to time. I mean, we use the slang, so there's a bit of
Yeah,
Yoruba.
yeah.
And then when I don't want them to hear, then I'll go into my own bad Yoruba too. But they understand, they get
Yeah.
the gist. So,
Yeah.
So I think,
I don't
but
know,
okay, I'm looking
really
at time. We have
worried.
a minute.
And I guess it's because so where I live in London, there's quite a lot of Asians around me, and I
Okay.
just see how
Yeah.
they carry everything through, and I'm just like, why?
No,
can
they've
they
got
do it?
that.
And
They
locked
yeah.
down. Why can they do that and we can't?
Yeah.
Are they just more? I don't know. Is it that their culture is so much more personal to them, or I don't know.
I think it's
just
also
something
the-
I've been
We're
thinking
still
about
dealing
recently.
with colonial.
Well, I think that
So
has
are
something
they,
to do
though?
with it, but
Are they?
not in the same manner.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Not in the same manner. But I think, okay, so I think it's important that we do pass down our culture to
History.
our children. I guess you can decide which bits you think are important. We've spoken about language. What are you going to take for your kids? Are you going to teach them Yoruba now?
I do want to teach my son Yoruba. My daughter's not interested. But
Maybe later, maybe later. Like I said, I mean, my sister-in-law was in her, almost 20 before she learned Yoruba here.
Really?
Yeah, and she only
And
learned
she
it from
can-
hanging
and she
out,
can-
yeah,
okay.
from hanging out with people.
I'm encouraged.
Okay, we have 3. Rock your own gorgeous. Thank you. Let us know what you think.
well done.
Wow. Time always goes so quick.
It goes.